This is Tony Koehl from Sketch of Soul Studios, and you are experiencing Poppitt's Corner.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Poppitt's Corner. Thoroughly excited to be doing this as always, and I got my main man, Mr. Travis Derby, hanging out with me today. Travis, how you doing, man? Thanks so much again.
What's going on, man?
Coming on the show and
How are ya?
hanging. And how you been before we get started?
Doing all right, doing my best. There's been, a lot of shit going on with, the band and, just different things, family stuff, and, just trying to stay afloat the best I can. But, it's just cranking along.
So are you, in terms of the band, because you have a couple of different projects, which we'll get into and whatnot, are you talking Fallacy? Are you talking the Perilous Mind? Or are you talking...
Mostly just like Fallacy, to be honest. Yeah, like there's been some bad news, going with the band. Yeah, just like kind of reaching a point of no return with certain things that have happened. And
so you're at a crossroads.
Yeah, kind of, but it could be the end. We don't really know. I mean, three of us are kind of still thinking about, I mean, we've just had a lot of problems, a lot of setbacks, a lot of, people leaving, and we're just kind of feeling a little defeated right now. So
sure. Okay, so obviously we'll get more into that. I promise. And hopefully we can touch upon some of that if you don't mind. But
sure.
So the basis of the show is I'm literally going to go through your entire career and just talk shop and have some fun with you and tell some stories. So if you're ready, I'd love to get started.
Yeah, sounds great.
Cool. So walk me through just your first kind of recollections of just hearing music for the first time, and what were some of the bands that brought you into the realm of this craziness that is the music industry?
Yeah. So, I mean, my mom and dad had like similar music tastes, but like, kind of different music tastes at the same time. Like, I mean, if I was with my mom, which was most of the time, we were listening to Led Zeppelin, we were listening to Heart, we were listening to Van Halen, just like those types of bands, from the 70s and whatnot. And, as well as a handful of other things, too, like even the hip hop and reggae, and we were just like, it was a mixed bag, it was whatever we were in the mood for, even some ska and whatever else. And then my dad, he was kind of more into like the 80s new wave stuff, but he liked the 70s stuff too. And then my brother actually was the one who got me into metal. Like he showed me, let me backtrack a little bit. So my dad and my brother were way into like Metallica and metal and stuff. Not like big time with my dad, but especially my brother. They were into metal. And so I was sharing an iPod Classic, one of the old ones with the button that's like almost the entire thing is a button. Sure. And we were sharing that at the time. And, I was just like, I had like a couple things of my own on there, but for the most part, I just had his stuff. And they would always like tease me that I didn't like Metallica. And I was like, whatever. And, eventually I was just kind of bored one day, and he had like all this Metallica, on the iPod that we were sharing. And I just said, what, to hell with it. I'm just going to kind of see, I'm just going to kind of go for it. So I listened to a handful of songs, and I remember that like the song that like grabbed me the most was Jump in the Fire. For whatever reason, there was just something like really catchy about it that I could relate to. And but I just remember like thinking like, God, like the musicianship is just undeniable. Like the guitar work, it's like, it's been 3 minutes, not a vocal, and it's a song with vocals, it's just like just guitar, like Lars was, and Justice for All, you know what I mean? Like everything was just so tight, and I was just like, God damn, I don't know if I could say that, but
dude, of course. How old were you during this specific moment that we're talking about?
So that was like, I think I was like 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at that specific time, obviously, was this the heaviest material you were experiencing at this point?
Pretty much. And then, my brother finds out, and then here comes Pantera, and here comes, Testament and Exodus, all these bands. And he had a CD case, like one of the old school, like leather ones, where that destroy your CDs. And he had, the Slipknot self-titled. I put that on. I was scared, man. I was like, what the fuck am I listening to?
Right.
You know, and I just like couldn't even believe what I was hearing. That was like my first like, you know, like exposure to it.
Did you kind of tell yourself at this point, because we all kind of, as musicians, we have that we've all of us have told us ourselves that we're going to be playing this style of music for the rest of our lives. So was this the point of that for you specifically?
Not specifically right then and there. I think like I kind of like I got more and more into metal, like especially Metallica. You know, I would just like go through what some people call like worship cycles, where I'd like be like way into this band and then kind of get sick of them, and then it's on to the next band. And you know, so it was Metallica. Everything had to be Metallica, you know. And then so my brother and I, we get Guitar Hero Metallica, and that opened the doors more, you know. And it was just like years like that. And then eventually I'm like, you know what? Well, I tried guitar first, but then eventually I was like, you know what? I want a bass. I want to play For Whom the Bell Tolls, you know. That's what I want to do.
Interesting. So how much of the Guitar Hero aspect played a part into you discovering new music or / old music, whatever you want to call it, but new to you? How much of I guess the video game market and Guitar Hero especially played into you discovering music, and not only that, but wanting to in turn play this style of music? Because I'm sure you were jamming on Guitar Hero first before picking up an instrument.
Yeah, for the most part, that's true. You know, I actually discovered that I play left-handed like through Guitar Hero. You know, years before we did the Guitar Hero Metallica and stuff, we had like the Guitar Hero Legends, or I don't even know what they're called. It was like the third one, you know, with Barracuda and shit. And you know, so I remember I picked it up, you know, upside down, or so they said, you know, like up left-handed, and they were like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "That's just how it feels comfortable." But anyway, so you know, like doing Guitar Hero Metallica, and then there was a Guitar Hero, I think it was like Warriors of Rock or something.
Oh, you're talking the 80s? Is it the 80s one? The purple cover, purple and black cover?
I think so. It had like Megadeth, like it had like Holy Wars on it, and it had like This Day We Fight for sure.
Was that the World Tour one? Am I thinking of that one? Might have been.
Pretty sure it's Warriors of Rock, but anyway,
okay.
It's kind of like a weird, it's like a lot more like developed as compared to their other games where you're just like a guy on a stage. It seemed like there was a lot more going on. I don't know, but it was a fun game. And you know, like so you had like Megadeth and like Rush, and like it was kind of like it was cool how they did it. It was like there was like chapters and stories, and you know, beyond just touring and trying to make it or whatever. But yeah, so I mean, it was just like I getting into like kind of Slayer, and I mean, it didn't, honestly, Guitar Hero didn't do a whole lot for me, like with like making me want to play and making me like getting me into like new bands and stuff, like, but it was definitely integral in like getting me more into Metallica, you know, like seeing them, you know, they walked out to the, what do they walk out to? It's like the, you know what I'm talking about?
Are you talking about their intro music? Like
yeah.
Ecstasy of Gold?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And just like seeing that in the game, and I was like, man, this is tight.
It's awesome. So let me ask you this. Years later, or even picking up your first instrument, did you kind of discover that Guitar Hero is actually harder to play these songs than it is on actual, you know, that specific instrument? Because I did.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you did, but
I definitely knew that. I mean, I feel that way now. Like I go on Guitar Hero, I can't even get through fucking Slow Ride on easy, you know, and I can, but it's not pretty. You know, it's terrible. But you know, so now I feel that way. But like as far as back then, like I just knew that they were different animals, you know, and like I think I probably was better at Guitar Hero at the time, you know, but then I like, according to my mom, like when I picked up a guitar for the first time, like which was kind of around that time, but I wasn't like taking it seriously. According to her, like I was like playing songs, like I was like not like in their entirety, but I would like hear a riff, like or like whatever it was, like Iron Man, and you know, I just kind of start playing it, and she's like, how are you doing that, you know? And I was just like, I don't know, it just, you know, it just feels right, you know. And so I've always kind of had the ear thing.
Were you doing it left-handed at this point?
Yeah, something crazy with that. My brother got this acoustic guitar. This is my very first guitar ever.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was like this piece of shit. It was like, I think he got it off of eBay for like $1, a literal $1. So you can imagine it wasn't, you know, amazing. It wasn't like a, whatever. I'm not an acoustic guy, but it was a piece of shit. So if I remember correctly, he didn't really care about it. He didn't really have any interest in playing it. He was like, do whatever with it. And if I remember correctly, I somehow figured out how to restring it Lefty without watching a single YouTube video with the same strings. And
you didn't even get new fresh strings for the guitar?
No. And then I tuned them. They were, first of all, it was not in tune at all, but I ran them loose, and then I started playing it like a bass, and I was like, it's a bass. And I think I even I didn't string it up with the top 2 strings, or like the E and the B.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a 4-string,
to be a
guitar,
a thin sounding bass though, if you're using those kind of strings.
Oh yeah, I had no idea what I was doing, but somehow I figured that out.
So obviously the next point into your specific journey and whatnot, when was the point when, and you said you picked up the guitar first, so I'm assuming the electric guitar after this, or was this the point when you actually decided to pick up an actual bass?
So I cycled through a few guitars. I was still pretty young. I had to have been, like 12 or 13, like I said. And so I had, from there, I went to Toys R Us and we got like a first act, whatever the fuck it was. It was like a red mini guitar, and it was a right-handed guitar. And I went to my neighbor and I was like, hey, like, what would you think about like restringing this for me? I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I couldn't figure that one out. So he was like, dude, like the knobs, they're going to be in the way. And he was like, you don't want to fuck with this. And I was like, damn it. So then we go on Amazon and we ordered me up like a Squire Strat, like what everyone,
Was this the combo pack? Was the one came with the free amp?
If I had to guess, like, I think probably, yeah. Probably
like a 15 watt. What was it? A 15 watt custom or crate or something like that.
Yeah. It's like a fucking toaster.
Yeah, exactly. You put it on your belt or something.
yeah, exactly. Weighs like a pound. So I had that, and we ordered it up on Amazon, and we made sure we're like, okay, left-handed, whatever. It shows up right-handed, and we were like, so the mission failed again. So then from there, we're like, you know what? We're going to Guitar Center. We're going to pick you one out. You're going to hold it in your hands,
Right. Try before you buy it.
Exactly. And so good old Guitar Center, they had 5 lefties, which is
that's a lot.
Miracle.
Yeah.
So I picked out an Ibanez GSR or something like that. It was pretty nice guitar.
Is it the Steve Vai model, the one with that handle in it? Okay.
No, it was pretty low end. It was like, $300 or $400.
Okay.
And it was like, it had the shitty Floyd Rose, excuse me, on it. And just kind of, it was good for what I needed, I think, but like it was just like with the Floyd Rose and like the springy thing on the back.
You have to adjust the intonation on it. It's kind of a pain in the ass when you have one.
For like a first guitar ever, I don't know anything. So, but that was like kind of what I started on. And I was like, I was trying to play like Metallica and Pantera, and I was trying to palm mute, and I was palm muting wrong. I was like palm muting with my fretting hand, like just kind of like at the very, like above the first fret, like just deadening the string a little bit. And I was like, it sounds right, but it was wrong, so that was kind of like, I gave it a shot for a while. And then eventually I was like, you know what, this is not working out. This is no good.
Were you taking lessons at this point? Okay, so you were doing it all by ear still, and especially if you're doing Pantera stuff, you kind of have to have a Floyd Rose to play some of those parts. So
yeah, sure.
Just FYI there. But after this, when does the bass guitar actually come into play here? And I'm assuming you probably go back to Guitar Center or something. They probably have 4 basses, probably all used, because it's impossible to find a left-handed guitar or bass, which is primarily the reason why I specifically was not a lefty, because I could have been, because I was always strumming like this.
Oh yeah,
and it was impossible to find what I wanted. So
exactly, yeah. And that is no better today. That has not gotten better. I mean, if Jimi Hendrix only knew, that we have not evolved, But anyway, yeah. So I think it had to have been like my 16th birthday that I got my first like bass, and that was the first instrument that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna like learn this fucking thing, and I like really wanted to, and I was like really excited about, I was like, so obsessed with Cliff Burton and Robert Trujillo and these guys, and I was like, man, I want to play For Whom the Bell Tolls. I want to get a fuzz pedal and a wah, and I want to do the whole thing. I want to be Cliff. So that was like the first thing. That was another Ibanez, very simple model, 2 knobs, and so that was what I started on.
Now, what is your opinion when it comes to bass players using a pick? Because I know there's some that really like to do it and some that really don't. So I believe you're a finger style player on the bass. Okay. Obviously that probably comes from Cliff Burton and, Robert Trujillo. And obviously Newstead is a pick player, but it's a different kind of playing style. So I'm just genuinely curious your specific take on when the pick is actually necessary, because again, even Dave Ellefson plays with the pick, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, and I'm big fans of those guys, of course, aside from the allegations, but I'm big fans of Jason Newsted. I'm a big fan of Jason Newsted. I'm a big fan of David Ellefson. I'm a big fan of Dee Dee Verney from Overkill. There's a lot of pick players that I really admire, and that I really respect, even outside of metal, and so I don't have like feelings on it, like, oh, like Steve Harris, like you got to play with your fingers, or you're not a bass player. You're a guitar player with a pick, or with a bass. That's definitely not how I feel. And I've got guys in the scene that are pick players that like they're bitch and bass players. They're tight and they hold it down. And I started going back and forth. When I first started, I would play like For Whom the Bell Tolls fingers, and then I would play Whiplash with a pick, obvious reasons, so my technique wasn't at the time, like I just couldn't hang with the 16th notes and the pedaling and all that stuff. So I went with a pick for the fast stuff, but to be honest with you, I'm not any damn good with the pick. Like the more I played, the more I just kind of like got better with my fingers, and I just kind of left the pick. But in recent times, I've just like, when I pick up the bass in my room, like I'll just be watching a movie, I'll just kind of grab it, and I screw around with the pick now, and I've gotten better, so I'm kind of trying to get better. And
when is it kind of necessary to use a pick with metal bands? Because I notice a lot more black metal and thrashy kind of bands using that, I guess because of the 16th note variety, but
right.
But then there are players like Alex Webster and Steve DiGiorgio that use fingers, but they're also playing with like more of a variety style bass, like the fretless bass, to make it shine through, and
5-string, 6-string, extended range shit, Yeah. So I mean, it's really a matter of preference. Like I think with like certain like different genres, like I'm into like indie kind of rock and like classic rock, like there's definitely there's a tonal difference that you're going to get, and like depending on the band, certain bands, it just kind of works and it's kind of called for, you know what I'm saying? And whereas the fingers like wouldn't work at all, like it just like they wouldn't cut through, it just wouldn't be where it needs to be, but with metal, you can kind of there's more wiggle room with that, I think, and it's kind of more different band to band, and it's different subgenre to subgenre and guy to guy, so what really did it for me was Jack Gibson from Exodus, watching him play, and because of Gary, he's kind of a minimalist, like Gary, he's like, oh, I just play whatever Gary tells me to. But I just remember, when I think I had to have been like a senior in high school. I was in my Exodus phase, and that was the band that I was worshiping at the time. So I remember seeing Exodus, live on YouTube and in person too.
Okay.
And I just remember Jack like kind of had the Alex Webster, the 3-finger thing going, and I just remember I was like, I want to do that, like, because he was playing A Lesson in Violence, and he was just right there with the guitars, and I was like, that's what you got to do.
And did you start to notice the bass tone and what you kind of wanted in terms of your bass tone at this point too? Or is this later?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, Jack's tone is, I don't want to say brittle, but it's really, really bright to the point where like you almost kind of can't even tell what he's playing sometimes, but it definitely cuts through, and, it sounds killer, but it was kind of that type of sound that I gravitated towards, you know, Frank Bello, Anthrax, Dee Verney, Overkill, even though he's a pick player, like he has great tone and just like the real, like it's bright, but it's clean and it's just like, but you can still kind of tell what's going on, you know?
I think one of the best bass tones that I've heard in metal period is Dave Ellison's for me.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how he gets that tone or whatever, but he's super tight in his playing as well. So that helps, but
absolutely. He definitely knows how to, you know, he's a pick player. Like he knows exactly how to get that sound, that really clean attack, you know, like, I mean, his tone on Peace Sells was killer. His tone at every fucking album, you know, first album.
Yeah.
Even.
Him and Newstead, I think to me are the best for the pick players in terms of metal kind of goes, but
sure.
So let's move forward real quick. And I'm generally curious, did you start to notice more musicians around your specific area playing an instrument, or are you kind of like the anomaly when it comes to, I don't know, either playing bass guitar, especially because I'm sure you had more guitar players hitting you up than ever before, because bass playing around here, I mean, it's slim to none almost. So
yeah.
Did you start to notice an influx of musicians in your age group around this specific time, or was this later on?
You know, I didn't really have anything serious going like when like the first couple of years of playing bass, you know, because I was living in my hometown, Murrieta. So I had like a couple buddies in high school that I would jam with, you know, my buddy Anthony, he played guitar and we would kind of jam, you know, once in a while. We even, you know, wrote like a little fragmented song that ended up on the Perilous album, which
cool.
we'll get to, of course.
Sure, of course.
You know, so you know, it was mostly him and I jamming, and but it was all like guitar players, and like my other buddy had a drum kit at his house that I kind of fucked around on a couple times, but there wasn't really much happening. There wasn't many metalheads, you know, in my high school. Like we were kind of, you know, it's a very small group,
sure,
you know, and then it was like, you know, once I moved to Orange County, you know, that's when I started like putting like effort in, like I want to find a band, you know.
Okay, so what period are we talking about for Murrieta?
So that was like I said, I was like a senior in high school, you know, when I started jamming with my buddy. 2016, okay. You know, 2015, I guess.
Let me ask you this, because I would go out to, say, Temecula to view shows at a place called The Vault. It's not there anymore,
okay.
But did you ever go to, what were some of the venues that were around there? Or would you go to more of like the House of Blueses to see more shows? Because I don't know what the hell is in Murrieta / Temecula. My buddy had a band, or my cousin had a band called the Coltrane's that was from Temecula that used to play all the time around that area. But for you, did you start to go to shows locally, or did you kind of have to venture this way?
You know, I guess there was kind of a scene going over there that I was like mostly oblivious to. It was not metal, I can tell you that. And so that my buddy Anthony that I mentioned before, he actually got into a band called Nebulium that my other buddy had started, and you know, so the only shows that I went to that were anything close to local, which, you know what, they weren't even local. We went to Chain Reaction in Anaheim.
That's far, dude.
That's
from
far.
Murrieta.
That is far. You know, so I was thinking local, but you know, I just associate the two places because that was like the only place I went to for the most part. But you know, I wasn't really even going to shows at that time. Like I saw like Fear Factory in San Diego, Brick by Brick. Exodus was at like this place called the Main Stage in Ramona, which is such
hard as hell to get to.
Yeah, it's a weird spot. We almost didn't even get in. They were like, "You guys got to be 18." And I was like 17 for like literally I was going to be 17 for like another like 2 weeks, 10 days. It was like 10 days more. And then my buddy was like 15 and we were like, fuck, man, like we might be screwed here. And the guy let us in, man.
Good.
We were like, we drove all the way from, you know.
That's when the world was sane, dude. And people, you know.
Yeah.
Smart
there was humanity, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting that all ages venues were like slim to none. They're slim to none now. Back then, we had a little bit more variety, but especially now, I don't even know how a kid your age, if I was 15 or 16, 17, I don't know where I would go for local shows because they're all 21 and over.
Yeah, pretty much, or even 18 and over, and
I'm wondering if, so let's say, hypothetically speaking, just go along with me on this. If you were 15, 16, 17 nowadays, right? I wonder how much of an impact you would have had later on in life, or little impact you would have had on later in life from not seeing shows, not seeing, being a part of the local community out here. You have to wait until you're 18 or 21, dude.
Yeah.
So you're stifling almost a whole generation of not getting into your specific styles of music and bands and whatnot. So
it's a trip to think about. I mean, luckily I was not at that point with my playing. I wasn't confident. I wasn't even thinking about getting in a band. I was just kind of like doing my own thing. I knew I was going to be moving, so I was just kind of like just enjoying it, and just trying to grow and get better. But trust me, like I wasn't, last thing on my mind was like getting in a band at the time. It wasn't even a goal. So
immediately after moving here in Orange County and whatnot, what was kind of your next venture, musically speaking? Were you, because you were out of high school at this point, were you going to college and that's kind of how you were finding other musicians, or were you starting to venture to the local venues around here?
So let me make sure I get the timeline right on this.
Sorry,
okay, yeah.
dude.
Yeah, I know. Like it gets foggy up there sometimes, but so I didn't know anyone when I moved to Orange County. I was I was miserable, to be honest. I was just, all I had was my parents, and it was totally different setup than I was used to. But so the first thing that I did towards music when I moved to Orange County was I got like a really good amp setup, which is, it's a cabin head that I still have and use. And
is it a 4x12 or something like that, or
no? What the configurations are, it's really like weird, and it's kind of, there's like, it's like a vintage Mesa Boogie cab. It's like the guy who worked on it, he kind of guessed that it was like late 80s, early 90s, and I doubt the speakers were original when I bought it, but I know that they're not original now because I fucked them all up. So I as a graduation gift, actually, they were like, we'll get you a good setup, and then go from there, because I think at that point I was like, I want to play in a band, and I know that I don't have the gear. I had the bass, like my bass, I played my first bass live many times, even after I had a better bass. So I had the bass, but I didn't have, the rig, so to speak. So I got the cab, and then I got a Harkey 500 watt head, the David Ellefson head, And so that was like the first real move that I made towards music at the time. And then I did end up going to community college, which, moved things kind of along.
Did you have a car at this point? And where I'm going with this is because if you back in, if you didn't have a car, that's a main reason why you probably couldn't play with other people. So it's awesome that you got the bass rig, but I was curious, did you have a car at this point, so that your focus was, I already got the car, got the bass, now I can focus on getting a proper amp?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did. I had a truck, even back in Murrieta, so which I would like load up my little shitty practice amp into and go to my buddy's house, so luckily transportation was not an issue for me.
Most people it is, especially in your age group. So
I know,
very, very fortunate.
I was fortunate. Absolutely.
After you get the bass rig and whatnot, what is your next move? Obviously you said you were jamming with your buddy at this point?
So that was back in Murrieta. So I didn't have anyone to jam with, like when I moved out here. So there was kind of a couple buddies that I made in college that I did end up jamming with, like a little bit. Like they weren't really metal guys. Like it was like a pop punk guy, and I actually ended up finding my band Fallacy on Craigslist, of all places. Like I had a girlfriend at the time, and I was just like, God, I want to play in a band. And she was like, do it, like you can totally, like, I want you to do that. And, and I had a lot of support around me. And so I went on Craigslist one night. It was like the randomest thing in the world. I was like 4 a.m, and I'm up late, and I'm I'm going through Craigslist, and it was one of those deals where one asshole posted the same ad like 55 times. So I'm like 6 pages in, and it was shoegaze this and shoegaze and hardcore that, and I was just like, man, I was like this close to giving up altogether. I was like, this is dumb. And then I was like, okay, one more page, and I kid you not, like the first one, at the top of that next page was Fallacy, and it was the only like ad in that whole mess that wasn't like spam.
Oh, so did it say on like thrash metal band looking for bass player or something like that? Okay.
Yeah, and they had the influences and all the way down the list. I was like, yep. And I was like, and I was worried because of, I'm not a Craigslist guy, so I don't know how to like tell like how old an ad is.
I don't know how you hit up people on a Craigslist ad either.
Now I don't know if I do either. I somehow I figured it out at the time, but I was like, shit, I'm gonna email this guy, and I'm just gonna, fingers crossed that they're still looking for a bass player. This ad could be 6 months old by now, for all I know. So I just kind of gave it a shot, and shit, I woke up to his response, and I was like, okay. And he was like, you wanted me to get the Guitar Center off El Toro, and I said, dude, I'm there.
That's usually the main hub for us musicians. That and around this time too, I'm actually, I don't even know this. If we're talking 2016, 2017, the landscape had totally changed. So you probably weren't seeing a lot of like band looking for so-and-so and the flyers and having given the phone number on like 50 million tabs on the bottom. I'm assuming they didn't have a board, but would you? Okay, so
No.
they used to have one in Guitar Center where that bathroom is, and there was usually like a board.
Oh, a Guitar Center.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't really look for anything like that. I did spend a lot of time at Guitar Center just like jamming, hoping somebody would hear me and be like, bro, join my band. Not that it was any good, but.
Well, I think the problem with that is we all assume that everybody is in a band already.
Right. Like, oh, he's probably in a band. I can't ask him.
Because he's that, especially if you're like really good. It's like, oh, he's probably, it's a little intimidating to be like, oh, he's probably already in another band or something like that. Let's move ahead. So you joined Fallacy in what, 2017, 2018 era?
Yeah,
I'm assuming
to 2017.
When did you start to discover more of the local market around here in terms of bands go?
Probably not until like 2018, 2019, because like I joined Fallacy in 2017, like late May, and we weren't playing shows until like over a year later. I think our first show was like August of 2018, because we didn't have a full band. We cycled through all these members, and there was just a lot. We had to write our shit. We were we had a lot to do.
Right.
So we didn't start playing until like late 2018, and then that's when I had a couple coworkers that like were in this like kind of OC punk scene, and it was like this, basically the kids at Dana Hills High School, a lot of them were in punk bands, and and they kind of would do shows like in Santa Ana and Anaheim and places like that, and so we kind of like broke our way into that scene for a little bit, but we stuck out pretty bad, like, because I mean we were like heavy thrash metal, like harsh vocals and everything, and then here's all these like 16, 17-year-old kids playing like punk rock, so it didn't really ever work, but we did get kind of lay the groundwork for us playing live. We got practice, and
it's interesting that you would say you kind of stuck out like a sore thumb, because punk, I would assume, is gritty as fuck too.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously metal comes from a combination of, or at least thrash metal, punk, and the new wave British heavy metal and whatnot. So
totally,
it's interesting that you would say you stuck out like a sore thumb during this point, because were these pop punk bands? Because that would explain more of this of why you say you would stick out like a sore thumb. I'm just generally curious when it comes to like the styles of punk. Was it more 80s hardcore punk, or?
I mean, it's like, Bad Religion and Circle Jerks, and just like I'm not like a punk guy, so I don't really know, like Rancid, just kind of bands like that. And there's even some weird bands like there's this band called Shock Therapy, and they're kind of got like a B-52s thing going on, if I'm not mistaken, and they kind of seem to fit in even a little better than us. But I mean, it was kind of just cliquey, and that was also a problem too, is like all these kids were buddies, they went to high school together, and then here's these older guys that play, not only do they play different shit, but like, who the hell are they,
And did you have a demo at this point?
The demo came out in March of 2019. So like,
so you had nothing. You were
pretty
just
much
playing
nothing.
shows.
Pretty much playing shows. I mean, we were already recording the demo, but like we were just playing.
Interesting. Okay, so that explains why. Gotcha. We all go through our growing pains. I can tell you that much.
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
imperative to have something to promote as well, and essentially give them a quote unquote glorified business card, which is
Right.
what a CD
Right.
is, or a demo. So when did you get hooked up with promoters out here? Because I remember specifically seeing you, I think, at like a Jason Tyler show. And when does that whole, I guess, those connections come into play here?
I'm not the guy to ask. I'm like the one who usually has no idea what's going on. And, I'm like, give me an address and a time and I'll be there, but don't ask me questions, So I'm probably not the best guy to ask, but I mean, it just kind of came naturally, like the more we played, the more we kind of got our name out there, and the more we started getting connections, are you talking about the Carmen Bar show, like the farewell show? Yeah, I couldn't even tell you how we got that one. Like, because I think it was later that we played the Regal in, and is that not the same guy?
Yeah, Jason Tyler, correct.
Okay.
8HC Entertainment, yeah.
Sure.
He's an important guy to know. So
killer. Right on.
Keep him in your Rolodex there. I know it's old school for people, but
for sure. Yeah. So it just, again, it just kind of happened naturally, like over time, to start building those connections. But yeah,
you're probably gonna have a long road ahead if you're not the guy that's like really putting in the work and knowing all the connections, because you kind of almost need to be that guy.
Right.
It sucks.
Especially
really
outside of the band, now that I'm, Fallacy's kind of not, in a different place. I guess if to put it lightly,
right.
So with the Perilous Mind, and I'm like, right now it's kind of just my thing, so if I wanted to take that to the next level, start going live, I would have to really step up to the plate and like start like paying attention to shit a little bit.
You're almost kind of having to start over.
Yeah.
With this,
in a way,
which is, it's a good thing, obviously, that you are. It's just, and I'll throw you some context, no problem. But I'm saying, and you kind of have to step up in terms of like trying to get on certain, the big time shows, not just playing.
Right.
You don't play just to play, but be smart about when you play and where you play and with whom, and
yeah,
all. I guess it all kind of paints a picture for people, and they think that you're bigger than what you are. It's like smoke and mirrors, I guess, is the term I'm looking for here. So
sure.
Definitely keep that in mind going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I wish somebody told me that years ago, right?
Yeah, Fallacy had to learn the hard way too. Shelling out for these bogus local shows, like even at like Chain Reaction, and $600 show to play with no headliner. The roster of bands, like it's like an indie band and like all these bands that just don't fit together, and it's like, oh well, we're on a good stage, we're on a stage with live, good sound, and like who knows who's going to be there, and it's like, come on.
Well, they tend to take advantage of naive bands, to put it lightly. So
Absolutely.
Everybody learns it.
Green bands,
Oh, green bands. Okay,
bands in their green stage, before they figure shit out.
I'll have to start using that one. Now let's go to this stage. So you record the demo in what did you say? May of 2020 or 2019? Does it come out?
March
2019. Yeah. What is the initial kind of reaction, and how are you guys slowly promoting this?
So it was received pretty well. I would say, I mean, we definitely didn't hear anything bad, and a lot of people were listening to it. We got a lot of streams, and we were doing CDs, like we shelled out for, these like kind of like digipack, like kind of sleeves that were pretty nice looking, but we were putting CDRs in them that I burnt off my computer and Sharpied on, and so it was pretty DIY still, and then the next thing we have patches and t-shirts and shit, but I mean, we were just essentially going to shows and bringing CDs. We're like, oh, like let's bring like 30 CDs or whatever to the show, and we'll see how it goes, and so we're just kind of like selling CDs in the parking lot, selling shirts, selling patches and stuff, and just right out of the back of my truck, and so that was interesting time, and and then and then we did a single and eventually in an EP, and then kind of just like threw those tracks all on one disc with the demo, and but it was pretty DIY. We got on Bandcamp, didn't do a whole lot on Bandcamp.
Well, that's because there's there's so many other bands on that
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
platform. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this, man. Let's go back to your first show if we can, and just walk me
Sure.
through the whole experience for you. I'm sure you were nervous as shit to play a live show, but did you have, support from your folks? Were they kind of just cheering you on, and did you have friends there, or was this one of those times where there was like nobody there, and it's almost like you feel like you're naked on stage?
It's almost like we had 3 first shows, because we did like a friends and family type show, like invite only. It was at my dad's shop that we practice at, and we just kind of set the shit up, and had people that we were close to, not even like bands, like guys from other bands or whatever, just real tight circle, soft launch in a way, and so we did that. That was like our first show, and then we had our actual first show, at the Vault in Anaheim, or I'm sorry, it was either Anaheim or Santa Ana. I'm pretty sure it was Anaheim.
Okay.
And it was like this hookah lounge that like we may have played the very last show there because we were with the punk kids, and the punk kids like destroyed the entire AC unit and for no reason. And then the reason why I would say we had like 3 first shows is because the third show, the second show, excuse me, was actually really good. Like we were like people were like Fallacy, like people were like we had like 200 people in there, like because we went on super late, long story. And then the third show, no one was there. So that was like why, to me, that was like kind of almost our first show. It like felt like it. It was like probably how the first show should have been. But so it is reality check.
Usually you get spoiled during the first show, man. I don't know. I again, only speaking for me personally, but we had a lot of people at our first show, and then we're like, oh, this is going to be great all the time. It's going to be exactly like this.
Yep.
And you find out more often than not, 95% of the time you're playing to crickets.
Yep. And that's how it goes. Exactly. So luckily we got to do like the soft launch sort of thing where we played in my dad's shop where we were already comfortable in front of people that, that we know and love. And I was definitely nervous. And apparently, according to my bandmates, I got pretty fucked up too. Like before I said, which I didn't think. I only had a couple of beers. I'm a lightweight though. So, but pretty nervous, but we managed, we didn't screw up too bad. We got through it, and people, everyone was stoked, and even did a couple covers.
It's great that you got to play originals for your first show too, because
almost all originals.
It's awesome.
And we just threw a couple covers in, just for time, just to like make the time and make it. I mean, shit, like put on a show, instead of just run up there and play 4 songs and call it a day. But that was
that your overall goal though? Not just to play obviously music and whatnot, but putting on the live show aspect. Do you kind of get together with, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a couple years, but I think you had a front man or a guitar player front man, correct? Or you're the singer? One of the two. I can't remember.
Not in Fallacy.
Okay.
I do backing vocals, but we have like a singer that just sings.
Right. So okay. So again, my apologies for that.
You're good.
But do you kind of go to him and say, hey, let's try and like get these people in, or was he one of those frontman that was kind of nervous as fuck too, didn't know what to do, and you kind of just learned from that specific point?
I mean, it took him a little while to kind of get to find his place, and he's just not one of these guys that's going to be like, are you fucking ready, you motherfuckers? Like he's just kind of naturally, he's just himself, and like he's not going to become someone else on stage, for the most part. He's just him, and he's comfortable with himself, and that's great. So he did kind of come into his own, over time though. Like, of course we were all nervous, a little stiff, and saying dumb shit, and so he did get better, but him and I both, since I always had the mic as well, doing backing vocals, like him and I, like I think kind of learned from each other a little bit of like banter and just kind of hyping the crowd up, and just stuff like that. We just kind of played off each other a little bit, I feel like.
Interesting. So let's go to like 2020. So obviously the pandemic hits. What are you kind of doing musically around this time?
Okay, so in the beginning, just like everyone, we didn't know what to make of it. We didn't know what the hell was going on. We didn't know how long it was going to be or what we were up against, so we played in January. I think we did the Battle of the Bands in the Viper Room, to go play at Vakken. And then we played, I assume we played in February, though I don't remember for sure. And then we actually did play. We played I think the last show we played during that time was March 24th. Yeah, we were late.
That's literally when it happened.
Yeah, even a little bit after, because it was March 15th or whatever it was, that it all came out, So we just had these shows booked, and we were just I guess we'll fucking play them. And so we played at the Regal Inn with Slaytanic, I think they're called. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that was our last show, I guess you could say before COVID, but it kind of wasn't before COVID.
Yeah, it was kind of almost during it. You're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, we got a nice late one on there, and then we didn't play again until November, and then after that we didn't play again until August. I just realized that the other day, because I have every single set list of every show we ever played because I'm insane, So I noticed, I was like, August? Was it really November to August that we didn't play a show?
That's nothing. That most bands again.
But for us, I mean, we were playing
all the time,
full weekends every weekend for a while,
And you're almost a band that, no offense, that needed to do that needs to kind of play all the time because you have nothing to promote.
Yeah,
essentially, you have a demo. Not saying you have nothing, but I'm talking in terms of a full length or an EP or something that's properly, done. I would say.
Right. Yeah, we did. We had a buddy that did, all our stuff. We to be honest, we weren't happy with the outcome. I hope he doesn't watch this. He probably won't. But yeah, we did. Hate to make you wrong, but we did, the demo, and then it wasn't long after that we actually did a single that was paired with a music video, and we released a limited shirt with that too, which both of those things came from Battle of the Bands that we won or did well at. So, and then after that, we did an EP in 2019 of 2 new songs, and so that was kind of our body of work. But and then we had more stuff that we were about to record. We've been talking about it for 6 months, and we've just had all the stuff that's happened.
Right. And how much does the visual aspect play in part of you guys getting discovered by other people too? I'm always curious when it comes to the visual aspects and how much that plays a part.
With playing live, you mean?
Well, not only playing live, but the music video you touched upon. I mean, more people kind of look at that in terms of this is legit.
Yeah.
People like legit bands. They like when bands put in the work.
Right. And it looks professional. It looks like you'd never know if they were signed or not, you'd think that they were, so I get that for sure. Yeah, the music video, definitely we did pretty well with the music video, and I mean, one mistake we made was we didn't ever really play that song live, just because
it just looked good. It just
I don't want to get into it.
It sounded good on the record, so you just left it there. You have album songs.
Yeah,
Every band has them. Yeah,
but I mean, a single music video, we should have played it, but I don't want to get into that. We'll leave them out of this, but sure. That's just kind of, we just didn't really play it, and yeah, but
so you say that having the visual absolutely plays more of a part. I would say even more so than just releasing, music at this point. People like the visual aspects because people are now stuck at home or this, that, and the other. They're always on their phones. So
yeah, it definitely helped a lot. It was, short song, music video came out pretty good. You could definitely tell it was DIY as fuck.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah, but it still came out good. It looked pretty good from afar, and it was, people were way into that shit for a while. So
it's got its charm, right? That's
sure.
That's what it is. So
yeah.
So going off of this, because I know this took a long time to get out, and you were how long were you working on the Perilous Mind record?
It's really hard to gauge the timeline on it, but I mean, for the sake of a short answer, I mean, it was May of 2018 or so that I established it. I saw these songs, that kind of like were actually going to be Fallacy songs, and it just like didn't really work out that way. And I did some, inclined me to put these songs together into a track list, and at the time it was what are now tracks 4 through 10 on the record, and that's all that I had. And I can tell you, they never changed order. I knew, I was like, that's it, dude. And I was like, I need 2 more songs. And I was like, wait a second, we've got something here. What the fuck is this? We've got it's cohesive, like I feel good about this. Like, I'm going to see this through. I'm going to finish it. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew from there. But
were you happy with, obviously we'll get to that. Let me ask,
Sure.
Let me back up a little bit. When was the point when obviously you had the songs, but how do you choose the musicians that you want to play on this specific record? Because I mean, do you go into it with the mindset of this may be my only album and I want to choose the best of the best, or where was your mindset at in terms of choosing the musicians and players on this specific record?
So, Andrew was an obvious choice, he's Andrew, he's the man, the drummer. So I played with Andrew for years in Fallacy, and I knew I mentioned it to him long before it ever came to fruition, before we ever even jammed the stuff really. And I just told him like, hey, would you be down to do this? And he was like, of course. Why are you even asking me? So Andrew was always on board. And then my 2 guitar players actually were not original guys. They were not originally who I had brought on to do this. I had my buddy Dylan from back in, he didn't live in Murrieta, but he was like a guy I went to high school with. He was a buddy of mine, great guitar player, fantastic musician in general, great friend. And I was thinking he actually helped record the Fallacy demo, and it just kind of didn't work out. And it was him and our other buddy, and he just kind of took over. And anyway, so I had him on the project where I was like, he's definitely on this thing for sure. And then I just he's a busy guy, and I could just tell he had too much on his plate. He wasn't that invested. And I was like, I've got to have guys that are in it to win it, So I just ended up finding Joe from Putrescence, who I saw, of course, live playing in Putrescence, which, Fallacy played a lot of shows with Putrescence, and I just remember being blown away by what that guy could do. And he was just so on top of his shit. And I just was blown away watching his fingers go. And I was like, man, I'm going to talk to this guy about this. And he was game. And luckily he was in it for the long run. Cause it took a really long time from the time I asked him to the time we were in the studio and the time leading up to it, working on it. And then the other guy, Ivan from Sacred Origin, actually, I'm sure you're familiar. It goes without saying, he's fucking amazing. He's a great guitar player. And he was also not an original member. I had Dylan, the original guy. He had a buddy named Trevor that he went to school with, who was a bitchin' guitar player, multi-instrumentalist guy, kind of more of a prog guy. But I just knew, I was like, this guy can play anything. And so I found him through Dylan, and I was like, I'm going to give this guy a shot and see if he's down. And that just kind of didn't work out either. He was down for the challenge. He's like, I've never really played thrash, but I'm down. I think I could do it. I'm excited. And it was kind of always a battle to kind of keep him engaged, and he would leave me on red all the time. And I was just like, man, I don't know about this guy. I don't know if he's kind of in this or if he can pull this off.
1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of deal.
Yeah. So I kept poking at him. I'm like, bro, are we doing this? Are you going to pull this off? It's the timeline's crunching now. We're getting there. I need to know now. I'm not trying to be annoying. I'm not trying to be a pain in the ass, but I need you to tell me no or yes, because I need to find a guy to play on this thing.
Sure.
If you can't do it, And so finally, and even at that time, he was like, yeah, dude, I'm down. And then 2 weeks later, he's like, I'm sorry.
At least he told you. At least he didn't fucking string you along for years and years and years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he was cool about it. I think maybe he probably even was he was busy, but I think he did want to do it for a long time. And then he kind of was just like, oh, well, I've got some other stuff going on right now. I'm moving and this and that. And he's like, probably be better if you just kind of found someone else. And I said, done.
It's amazing that musicians don't want to record and be on something for the rest of existence.
Right.
Why not? If you put in all this effort, see it through, you know.
Oh yeah, sure.
And just even talking with you, I could see that you're going to be just fine with like establishing connections because you're a go-getter. It seems like if you're passionate about a project, you'll fucking see it through.
Oh yeah, I have to agree.
Like
yeah.
you're not afraid to. I wouldn't even call us bad guys, but you're not afraid to just fucking put the pressure on and say, dude, either you're doing this or I'm finding somebody who will, because this will get done with or without you. And that's just what it is.
Yeah. And
you're
that's
either in it or you're not.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, that was something with the Perilous Mind that I definitely wanted to like be like really firm about, you know, without being a dick. You know, I don't want to become one of these guys that has a reputation of like a Chuck Schuldiner, God bless him, or like of Dave Mustaine or whatever, you know.
But they get shit done.
They do get shit done, but you don't have to be a dick about it, you know.
Well, there's always a way, but you have to still be firm and not be taken advantage of, because that's the fine line there. You know, you can be nice about it, but you also have to be firm and know that this is going to get done with or without. It is what it is.
Exactly.
Do you want to be a part of it?
Yeah. And it's like, you know, Fallacy, not to put Fallacy down, but we kind of did things a little bit differently. It was a little bit more, you know, friendly and a little bit more, you know, like of a challenge to get everybody to like focus on one thing and like and it is kind of just the way it went. And so like with the Perilous Mind, I was like, you know, I've got to like, I'm a control freak, man, you know, and to kind of to my own detriment at times, you know, like it stresses me out, like not having shit going.
You and me both, dude. That's why we do so much fucking shit, right?
Yeah, sure.
Now let's focus. I want to focus on this aspect too, because I know it's interesting that this album flows, and I think I was texting you about it, but it like flows really nicely, and it's like the intro piece I didn't even know went into track 2, and then track 2 didn't even know the song ended into track 3. So was this more of a conscious decision to just let it kind of almost be over and done with without even like, it's like, how do I explain it? Being over and done with without the listener feeling like, oh, this is dragging on and on and on.
Yeah, you know,
because it kind of feels like that for me, where it's like, oh, it's already over.
Yeah, well, thank you, by the way. God damn, that's a compliment. But you know, like continuity is something that's really important to me, and you know, things being cohesive, and like I kind of use the term momentum. You know, like there's been so many albums that I've listened to by bands I love, even, you know, that just don't quite hold you. They just like, even the songs are good separately, but they lack continuity. They lack like cohesiveness in a way. Like it just doesn't quite keep the momentum up. Like, let's say like, you know, a band has like 3 really slow songs in a row, and you know, there's not one right way or wrong way to do an album, but that's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted it to kind of bounce back and forth. I didn't want it to get stuck in one place too long, you know, but I did spend a lot of time with my the guy who mixed and mastered this record to make sure that the gaps between each song, the transitions, like, God, that's something we spent a lot of time on. I would have to say that we nailed it.
You have to. No, it's part of it. With the artwork and whatnot, obviously you had Tony do the artwork, and he's the man. I always love working with Tony because I just fucking I give him a job, and I leave him alone, and then I get something back that fucking rules. So what is the initial kind of concept towards the album cover? Because you have to excuse because I'm not artsy fartsy. So what does this album cover kind of represent to you? Like the whole figure in the sky thing that has most of the detail on it, and then like the figure kind of looking at it. So what is your overall concept towards the album cover, and did you achieve it this time around?
So as my vision grew and grew and grew for this album, one thing that took a really long time to get in my head was, you know, what I had eventually pitched to Tony for the concept. You know, like it took years of sitting on the music till like I was like, God, I just really don't know what I see for the cover. Like I really don't know what the hell, you know, I'm gonna tell this guy, or you know, or end up with, you know. And so it just ultimately came down to like I was like, well, for the sake of what this project is, since it's kind of my thing, like I want it to reflect more of me in the cover, you know what I mean? And like the time period that the album's like subject matter kind of covered was a time where I was kind of getting more into like, you know, like the darker sides of life and like dark art and like just kind of darkness in general, just like learning how to appreciate like just like a really like bitchin' looking sky, like a night sky with like almost like a Bathory album cover, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, I just kind of connected with that side of life a little bit more. So and then the other thing is like I used to have these dreams when I was a kid, like to this day I don't know what the hell they mean, but like, you know, I just like would have these dreams where like there would just be like something like up in the sky, like this, whatever that it could be. You know, one time it was like a lifeguard tower, and like there was just, I don't know, there was just like this whole, like everyone was just kind of looking up at this thing and like, God, that's, what the hell is that? And then there was another dream I had where there was like this glass box in the sky. It was like a room, and like everyone just kind of like, it was almost like something out of a horror movie. Like it just kind of like crept in, and it wasn't like a alien or anything like that. It wasn't like there's nothing occupying it. Everyone just kind of looking up at this thing like, God, what the hell is that? And so like I remember those dreams like really stuck in my head for a long time, of course. And I was like, you know, I kind of want to capture that for the cover. And I mean, you know, Tony did a great job. And of course, with the album being called The Cycle of Darkness, I was like, what better than to have a literal cycle, you know, like in the sky that I'm kind of looking up at, like, oh fuck, that doesn't look good, you know?
How did you decide on Tony Koehl out of all the artists out there?
I'll never forget, I was just randomly on Instagram, and somehow I scrolled across this, like a post that you made of like a stack of your albums, like, and it was like the entire Madrost discography or whatever. And on the top, of course, was The Essence of Time, because that was your newest release at the time.
Point.
Right, is pre-charring The Rotting Earth.
Right.
So I saw that cover and I was like, oh, what is that? You know, and that's how I found you. That's how I found Madrost. And I was like, man, that cover is bitching. You know?
Interesting. So did you, again, that's fucking awesome. Thank you for that, by the way. Of course. I would probably never, I don't know, man. I like posting about me sometimes, but not really a social media guy anymore. But probably at that time I was more prevalent on those platforms. But I'm just kind of curious how you even discovered my profile, because I don't think we had met at that point.
No, not at all. I had no idea, dude. Like it was just like, you know how Instagram will like suggest like random like posts to you or whatever, and I just like saw that cover and I was like, ooh, what is that? You know, and the rest is history. Just kind of went on Spotify and put the album on, and you know, and here we are.
That's amazing, man. Wow, and it's so funny that we're in the same town almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we didn't. You had to find out about us on social media.
Yeah, like, totally weird. And at the time, like, I didn't find your Instagram, so to speak. It was like the Madrost.
Oh, the band
Instagram.
The band one.
I'm pretty sure. And I was like, oh, who's this band? You know, and you know, looking at a picture of you guys, I was like, they look cool. They look, you know, maybe a little bit older than us. But I was just like, man, like this album is dope. This is a bitchin' album. So
I'm honored. Seriously, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. But
of course.
Now, so obviously the album has come out. Now that it is indeed out, are you initially happy with the results of this? And in terms of the next project for you, what would you like to see changed compared to the Cycle of Darkness record?
Like, are you talking like production, execution?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even if it's like, I don't know, the title of the album, the logo placement, or logo in general, or I mean, where do you want to see this project go on the next record compared to where it is at during this infant stage, as I'll call it?
Well, you know, I think it came out really good for the most part. I know, like, I mean, I fuck with myself nonstop about worrying about every little thing. Like, I'll go listen to the album and I'll fucking love it. I'll be banging my head the whole time, and then I'll worry about it for 4 days. Like, did we mix that right? Are those vocals too loud right there? What about the bass right there? Oh shit. You know what I mean? Like all this, I'm sure you might relate. Like I just drive myself crazy, and you know, and it's totally in my own way at this point, because it's done and it's great, you know. But you know, as far as the next album, because that's kind of where my head's at, is like I want to put out another Perilous Mind record. Like I want to like have this kind of on the side, like not on the side, because it is mostly my main thing right now. but I want to have like whatever I'm doing in life. I want to have the Perilous Mind. I just want to put out good albums, and that's my number one goal. And so
would you use the same musicians on that you used on this time around, or would you like to venture with other musicians and see what they can bring to the table more? Or I'm just curious, how much is this a solo project? Like, what is this project?
So it's kind of a solo project, but I didn't want to like come out and be like, oh, it's the Travis Derby experience or whatever, I mean, that's like, I'm not into like solo artists that like use their name, like the Freddie Mercury or whatever, rest in peace, of course. But it's like, first of all, I'm just Travis. I'm not like some like star, I'm just like a guy, I just like Fallacy's Fallacy. We did pretty good for a while. I understand, I made friends, not fans, for the most part. I would say that's fair. And so like, I just kind of wanted to do this thing on my own. I just wanted to have something that I just like really was my baby, and just like I did it for myself. I was like, I could give a fuck how far this goes. I want it to be like relatively a small release. I just like, I want like I just figured like I want, like, after all I went through, like, which is, if you read the lyrics, there's
It's a lot.
pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
After all I went through to make this and for it to even exist, like, I'm like, I've got to see it through. I got to make it happen.
It's fucking awesome. Now let me go to this aspect too, and just your vocal approach. Who were some of the bands that you kind of were trying to emulate? Because you mentioned you were backup vocalist for Fallacy, but this is primarily the first time, I would say, at least on a record, that you've had to be the singer, right? So
yeah,
who were you trying to, I guess, emulate in terms of your vocal approach?
Well, I can tell you who I practiced to during the time of, building my voice up to do the record, and, Malevolent Creation, Morbid Angel, Death, Pestilence, like Testimony and shit, and
Spears and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
it's always been my favorite.
Great record. Even Max Cavalera, Sepultura, like Arise or whatever, and of course I don't sound like him, and different styles. He has kind of more voice in it, and it's just like gruff, like, it's harsh, but it's not like death metal or anything. So like, I would just kind of do my shit over it, and it just kind of worked that way. Like, it just, like, there's certain singers I can't sing over.
I see. I try to have that approach, that Max Cavalera approach, where it's gritty, but it's still
legible, right?
Because I can't do the lows, because my register is a little bit, it's hot, mid to highs. So you have to play with what your register is. So in saying that too, man, when you were writing the riffs and whatnot, how do you develop your vocal cadences, even just singing over a certain riff? Because you gotta, now you're playing bass primarily on this,
right?
But obviously you did.
Well, I did the rhythm guitar.
You did the rhythm guitar.
Yeah.
So I was going to get to it, but I'm talking, even if this was a live thing, I'm assuming you'd be more of a bass player.
Yeah.
For it.
Yeah. I
So
mean, I'm a bass player. Exactly.
Well, you kind of, my point is, you can kind of get away with having a different vocal approach and your cadences than what I would, because I'm having to play and sing at the same time, guitar wise. And it's very noticeable if, like, I'm off.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if it ever went live, I assume I would do bass and vocals, just because it just seems right to me. Like, I would love to do vocals and rhythm guitar, but I need 2 lead guitar players. So why have 3 guitar players and a bass player? And it's like Iron Maiden it or whatever, So, I would do bass and vocals, or, if I couldn't pull that off, at least vocals and then hire bassist or whatever. But yeah, a lot of people think that, like, I just started singing, or like, oh, like, you're so good for how long you've been doing it. And it's like, well, of course that's a great compliment, but like, I've been singing as long as I've been doing everything, like, if I have my facts right, I think I screamed, or as Jake from Fallacy says, scrum, the first time before I started taking guitar seriously. And I mean, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was terrible, and I was probably hurting myself for a long time. But like, I mean, it took me until, this past, around the time I started building my voice up for the record was when I started doing shit right.
I think the reason why they probably say that too is because this is the first time you've been recorded.
That's true. Right.
So the
Mhm.
only thing they have to go off of now is this record, you
Yeah.
know? So it's
And that's fair because it is the first vocals I ever done for a record.
right. And everybody starts somewhere, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
totally.
only going to grow bigger and better from here. So
Mhm.
if this is like the worst that you sound, it's only going to get better. You know what I
hope
mean?
It's not.
Well,
Yeah.
it's okay to make a first album.
Mhm.
Bands should make a first album.
Mhm.
But this is a great first album. I'm not knocking it one bit.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that this is an amazing starting point that you have.
Mhm.
And I'm stoked to see where it's going to go from here. Like what direction you're going to want to take, because I'm almost sensing a more progressive vibe on the next record. Because I'm thinking this is kind of where you want to go to, but you're still developing your own sound, and it's your writing style is going to change, and
Sure.
bands are going to come and go, like you said during the
Sure.
start, where you're going to have I forgot what you
Worship
said.
cycles.
Worship cycles. There you go.
Yeah.
But I'm just generally curious and stoked to see where this project is going to go and whatnot, because I think you did like I said, not to kiss your ass or anything, but it's a really great record that I think
Thank you.
people should check out. And there's not a lot of bands doing records like this, especially around here.
Mm.
You know, the more technical, progressive style of thrash metal.
Mhm.
That's my bread and butter. That's what I fucking love.
Yeah.
You know, that's like my favorite music genre of all time. And I'm sure, like you want to only add to that because there's
Pretty
not
much.
a lot of it.
Pretty much. Yeah. You know, and I mean, I never know if to say we or I, you know, it's kind of weird, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of are like we call ourselves death thrash, but like, you know, it's mostly thrash metal at this point, you know, like the death metal influence, of course, came in with the vocals and, a little bit into the music later on, you know, and there just wasn't a lot of room to add more death metal into it. Like the songs were the songs. But where I see the new stuff going is like, there's definitely gonna be, you know, some more death metal. I think it's going to be a little bit more true to like death thrash, like not like cookie cutter or anything, but like you're going to, you know, drum picking and blast beats and shit like that. Like it's like kind of going in a heavier,
I love it.
faster.
Well, we're gonna have to play some shows together then, because obviously we play the same kind of style of music, you know. Madrost
Yeah, sure.
and Perilous Mind.
If it goes live, yeah. I would be honored, man, for sure.
That'd be awesome. You know, I appreciate the compliment, man. And I definitely think
You bet.
people should check out the Perilous Mind record. And I even before signing off here, let me ask you this, you know, how did you choose the producer for this? What made you go to him, and essentially you recorded this all yourself?
Like what do you
In
mean?
terms of recording it, didn't you? Because you literally spent years and years and years on this record, from my understanding, even just reading the booklet and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean the recording did take a while. It took like under 2 years, but not. It was like a year and 8 months or 9 months or whatever.
To record a record, man.
A long time. So what happened was I had started doing the record with the guy who did the Fallacy stuff, and I was like, okay, you know, I'm comfortable with him. I know him. I know what he does. I know his work. Like, you know, like I can have him track everything and then send it to another guy to mix, you know. And so that was pretty much the plan out of the gate, you know, unless he was going to be willing to try some different things in mixing, you know, which we didn't even get there. So basically with this first guy, Gio is his name. We did pre-production. Of course, we did the drums, rhythm guitars, and clean guitars. And we attempted bass. But, you know, long story, didn't work out. And so we get to, so at that point, you know, we had finished all that to that point, and we attempted bass, like I said. And then, you know, Gio drops the ball on me. He's like, look, I'm moving. And he's like, I can't record for 3 months. And I was like, well, no, I'm sorry.
Gotta have the tracks. Here's your payment.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, pretty much. So I was like, I hate to tell you, bro, I'm going to start like looking for something, you know. I'm like, I hope that you understand why I don't want to wait 3 months right now, which of course, I mean, there was already good, like a lot of gap between each session. Like we did the drums in August, and then we didn't do the rhythm guitars until January. And then clean guitars were pretty short after that, but then we didn't do bass until like, you know, April.
It's a long time.
Or May. I don't know. Like it was, yeah. So there was like, and that was just scheduling issues. Like he's busy. He has a very full-time job and very demanding job. And, you know, we needed to be able to block out weekends in their entirety, you know, for it to happen. And of course I had Fallacy, and which luckily wasn't that busy at the time, you know, because of COVID and everything. So like I was worried, like when I was thinking about doing this record at first, I was like, shit, like how the hell am I going to find time to do this? With Fallacy, we play every weekend, all weekend, you know. So anyway,
and it's interesting that Fallacy didn't make this. You know what I mean? Like that you had to go to another project to make a full length album for the first time. So I mean, I'm glad you did, because obviously you have more influence in this specific thing than you maybe would in Fallacy, and with whatever was going on is irrelevant. But I'm saying it's great that at least you have this.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just a totally different thing, you know, like with the Perilous Mind, the record was step one, you know, and with Fallacy, it's like step one is get a fucking band, like get guys, you know, and then it's write the stuff and play the shows. You know, Perilous Mind may or may not ever go live. Who knows? It's not a goal. It's not a plan. You know, so with Fallacy, it was a completely different, like we were like live is first. We got to play live. And then, you know, it's like, we'll do a few songs. We'll call it a demo. You know, we'll put out a single. We'll put out an EP. And it's like, we were just kind of tiptoeing, and we would talk about an album. We were like, fuck, you know, like, you know, we can't really do an album. We shouldn't do an album until we have like the right engineer, and like maybe even we have a little bit more traction. Like we want to have demand for an album. Whereas
you're never going to go anywhere with that mentality, though.
You're probably right, you know. But with the Perilous Mind, I was like, fuck demand. I want to do that. I just want to put the fucking album out. I don't care.
That's the secret. I'm telling you, that's the secret there, because nobody's going to give a fuck about you locally, especially.
Sure.
Like, nobody's going to care.
No.
So there's a lot of bands with that mentality, though, just letting you know. Right. So I'm glad that glad you have this and you figured that out early on in your career. You know what I mean? Most bands don't figure that out.
Yeah, totally.
Now, in terms of getting the next producer after Gio, how does that whole thing come into play here?
Okay, so luckily Gio was pretty understanding of where my head was at. He's like, you know, I would do the same thing. Like, I get it. And so I kind of just I just started poking around in the scene. I was like, okay, who am I homies with? You know, Mantra, Vexum, you know, all these guys. And I started like, you know, Putrescence. And I was like, I'm going to go on Spotify. I'm going to listen. I'm going to go in my car and I'm going to fucking put their shit on and blast it. And I'm going to see like who's closest to what I'm going for. And it was almost no contest with Vexum. Like Vexum shit sounded great, you know, like especially they have a single out called Amped Up, killer song. And I just remember listening to that and I was like, Jesus, dude, that's local. Like it sounded killer. And by this time I had already worked with Birdcage Studios. I don't know if you're familiar.
Alan from Birdcage.
Yeah. Because I played in No Manic for a minute, and I did their record, or didn't do it, but I played bass on it. I was the temp. And you know, so I played on the record, and I just kind of wasn't really happy with how the album came out. I wasn't a big fan of Alan's kind of attitude and the way he kind of just had
his
this,
approach to producing.
Yeah, and he kind of just had this like, I know more than you, shut the fuck up attitude, you know, in like a quiet way. Like he wasn't like a dick or anything, but I could just like, I wanted to like shoot ideas off him, ask him questions, and he was just like, oh, I've been doing this a long time. And I'm just like, cool, bro. So anyway, so I wasn't really stoked on how that
experience went. So
yeah. And you know, the prices, dude, goddamn, $35 an hour. And that's not even as expensive as I found elsewhere. But anyway, so I heard, you know, the Dark Cauldron / what's now Primal Studios work.
Yeah, where are they located?
So Dark Cauldron is in Riverside, and Primal Sound is in Covina.
Oh, so you're still working local.
Kind of, yeah. It's like, I mean, it's a drive. Don't get me wrong. Like,
well, no, but I'm saying it like you're not going to another state and hiring a producer that way, because a lot of us do that because that's what they specialize in. But
right.
It's cool that you found a studio. Why not record it all yourself though? Because obviously you have the technology to do that.
I'm terrible. Like I'm terrible with like I do record at home. Like I have a MacBook Air with Logic Pro that my buddy ripped for me, and you know, like my demos don't like really sound any good. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like I can record, I can edit, I can track, I can, you know, I know what I'm doing to a degree, but like I was like, man, like it's
you
got to
want-
come out right.
Would you want to instill that trust though in somebody else just to take that load off of you? Because you're doing a lot for this project.
Exactly. I was like, aren't I, like I'm already playing like a lot of the stuff. Like I last thing I need to do is like worry about recording it. And I was like, and I'll be honest, I take shortcuts with demos at home like that people will first of all never hear or see the light of day, like with recording at Logic, like copy and paste shit, whatever, who cares? It's a fucking demo. It's not for anyone else.
Right.
So like when I'm writing and the stuff for the next record, like I'm it's just easy to just like get like a mediocre take and butcher it to make it good and copy and paste it, whatever. But with the album, no, like I don't even want to be tempted to do shit like that. So it was just a matter of like, knowing that I had a standard to meet and like I wanted to push myself really fucking hard to like do this thing legit and right and like, make sure that it was authentic.
Interesting. So, okay. So you go to Primal Studios, was it that you said?
Dark Cauldron. Well, they kind of have a partnership going. So it's like one guy has Primal Sound, one guy has Dark Cauldron. Primal Sound's kind of a newer, like they kind of just like made their name. I hope I'm not wrong. I know that he just made an Instagram, but they've always kind of had a partnership. So like pretty much like they're both named Art, funny enough. When I talk about them, I endearingly, of course, I call them Thing 1 and Thing 2. So Thing 2, who has Primal Sound, he'll record drums at Thing 1's at Dark Cauldron, because like he doesn't have the setup to record drums, he doesn't have the space, he just like it just kind of works better to do drums at
Dark Cauldron.
Dark Cauldron,
okay.
right? And so he'll do drums there, and then for the most part, he'll do the rest of the tracking of Primal Sound because he has the setup for it. But sometimes like if he's kind of busy or whatever, like something's going on, like I actually did bass at Dark Cauldron, even though like he does plenty of bass at
Primal.
Primal. Sorry, I'm fixing all this shit.
All
up.
Good.
But so I did bass first. That was the first thing I did, which luckily I was prepared. I had a lot more time to get the stuff tight, and I was just a lot more focused, because I had guys that I wasn't comfortable around, just because I had never met them before. And so I knew that I was like, I got to bring my shit. I got to be on top of this, got to learn from past mistakes. And so we did bass with Dark Cauldron and then moved over to Primal Sound, did leads and vocals, and he mixed it and mastered it as well.
Awesome. So, and I'm assuming you do this all to a click track or something like that,
right?
Even in the beginning,
mm-hmm.
And you probably learned from asking around with how bands record or whatnot, because everybody has their own different takes as far as how they record goes. Because honestly, and I'm gonna probably shoot myself in the foot here, but I like when I like copy and paste.
Yeah.
Like they're, a lot of the stuff has to be that way because of time issues and
yeah. Well, I mean, you got to be honest, you got to do what's best for the record, and that's not new, dude. This is, I mean, Golden and Justice for All. Lars didn't play one single fucking song on that record all the way through.
I don't think he did. I think they pieced it together.
Exactly. Yeah. And the double bass was copy and paste. I mean, go listen to if you can get the Dyer's Eve isolated drums, dude. I almost want to tell you not to. Like you can tell, like in the mix, it's okay. It's not too bad. But like if you listen to the isolated tracks, it's like,
yeah, but that record sold how many millions of albums?
Oh yeah.
So again, and I'm not downplaying us. I'm not downplaying how you record and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
There's just different ways of doing it.
Oh sure.
It's art. Art is subjective. There's no right or wrong way to record a record.
Right. You got to do what's best for the album, and I'm not going to say that we didn't do everything like in one take. We didn't record it on a fucking tape.
Oh.
Like we definitely, there was times that you get punched in, like you fuck up, you punch in, or we did like a separate guitar track, or like there was a couple songs that we did like extra rhythm tracks for, like the slower, heavier, chunkier ones. And I was like, well, what sense does it make to have like 4 guitars in some songs and 2 guitars in others? Like fuck all that. So let's use those extra tracks, and like, if there's like a mistake in the top 2 tracks, just kind of like move that part just up in that part, it's called studio magic, and you got to do what you got to do.
Vocally speaking too, I do like to do things all the way through and finish certain cadences and whatnot. So relatively, that's where I leave that challenge up to me, because I'm just of years of being a quote unquote vocalist, whatever that means, out of necessity, right? So you record, you're recording and whatnot. And I'm assuming this is probably the same for you. So correct me if I'm wrong here, but when you probably approached recording your vocals, maybe for the first time and whatnot, you probably wanted to do line by line and then see how it goes and probably punch in certain words or do it all again, or
pretty much
insinuate that specific cadency to either a longer scream, shorter scream, whatever that is. So
pretty much, yeah. And it was like, which this is what I'm about to say is in the CD liner notes, but so you may have read it already, but when I pulled up to do vocals like that first night at the studio, like as much as I had put time into like really getting my shit right, and from a technical standpoint as well, I did take a few lessons, which we can get into or whatever if you want to, but I pulled up to the studio that first night doing vocals, I was like, I don't know what the fuck is going to come out of my mouth when, as soon as I step in that booth, I could have, the Perilous Mind could have no vocalist right now, and then what, so catastrophic thinking, but so I went in there and just kind of sent it, and you just kind of learn as you go, and like I was like, okay, well that song is kind of easier, like Dying Face or whatever, track A, like the vocals are, it's pretty spread out and shorter lines, and which wasn't the point of the song, that's just how it was written, it wasn't meant to be easier or anything, but I just kind of made my way, worked my confidence up, and shit, I did 3 songs the first night. And awesome. And I was like worried too about my voice holding up, I was like, shit, dude, like I haven't really put in a lot of work to have like stamina, just because I know we can do it one line at a time, so I don't need to be able to sing these songs all the way through. And I was also kind of battling with myself during the time of building my voice, like getting ready to record, of like I don't want to push myself too hard and fuck my voice up before recording, because like with the rhythm guitars and the bass and all that, dude, like I was fucking every single night I was playing for hours, but you can only push your voice so hard, so I was like, I need to kind of be tactful about this. And anyway, so like, I was worried about my voice holding up, and I did have some issues later on that had nothing to do with the way I was singing. It was a cold that I was battling.
Okay.
The residual phlegm and clearing my throat way too much, and I had puffy chords,
Oh, I see. Okay. So let's go to I do want to touch upon some of the lessons you were taking.
Sure.
Were you immediately after taking the lessons, did you feel more confident in terms of singing wise, and were you listening more towards like your body? Because that's primarily, as a vocalist myself, that's what I'm listening to, is like how much my body can take. So I'm listening for what my body's telling me, and
right,
instead of listening to like what my throat is telling me, if that makes sense.
Pretty much. Yeah. I get what you mean. I mean, I was kind of to the book with my technique. So, like the high screams are kind of like at least in the vein of like a fry scream, I guess you would say technically. And then, my main vocal's kind of like a false chord scream, and I might not be doing it exactly right, but I know that I feel good when I do it. I'm chilling, I mean, shit, I was going for like 5 hours every night in the studio, and I was holding up. There was only like one night where he was like, all right, like you're kind of starting to sound a little different. Like, let's kind of just call it a day and we'll come back tomorrow or whatever, but when it came to the lessons, like I didn't really like with my main vocals, the false chord, like, style shit, like I didn't really learn a whole lot from her. I used Mary Zimmer. Who's a very, she's like pretty prolific in the scene with as far as like how many guys she's worked it with.
Is that the Zen of Screaming?
No,
that's Melissa Cross.
Yeah, which I did. I bought the Zen of Screaming, and I did kind of start working on the breathing and shit, and using my diaphragm.
Over the pencil, or
I couldn't do the over the pencil thing, man. I couldn't figure that one out. But like it's just as far as like the breathing and using
your diaphragm,
engaging my diaphragm, that was definitely something that I really did figure out, and that helped me a lot with doing the vocals in the studio. But I had already had like the high fry screams like for a couple of years, and like I had them down, like I could hold them as long as I wanted almost, and like that was something I did have. However, with COVID happening, and suddenly Fallacy's not meeting up, I used to do that shit every week with Fallacy, sing in the car, now we're not playing at all. So, that muscle development was gone. So that's kind of what the biggest outcome of those lessons, which I only took 3 lessons. It was a package. And that was the biggest outcome from those lessons, was like getting that muscle development back, and she gave me exercises to build back the sound, which what I found out was that what I was doing before was a fry scream. And I was like, well, how the fuck did I figure that out? I just like did it. I didn't even know what a fry scream was when I learned it,
I still don't know what a fry scream is.
You don't? Because I feel like you're kind of sound fried to me, what you do, like your type of vocals. And that's not, of course, that's not an insult. It's a compliment.
That's what I'm going for. I'm always, and again, you and I have entirely different style vocals.
Sure.
You have the more of the death metal low end that I just don't have. It's I used to have it at a certain point. That point's gone. This is what I have to do now. But I'm always going for like, I want it to sound like my throat is almost being eroded from my vocal cords are being eroded from my throat. So like my throat is almost coming out of my mouth.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's being like,
it sounds like some sci-fi shit.
like it's like I'm like shredding my throat. That's what I want it to sound like Martin Van Buren, because he's like you're like I'm in pain, but I'm not
and then like
pestilence,
and pestilence,
and hail of bullets, right
on,
So, but I always loved his vocal approach.
Kind of screechier, like
not even that, but it just sounds like he's in pain.
Yeah,
I just think that's fucking metal.
But you're not.
But I'm
just
not.
Like the sound,
and he's had that same vocal style for fucking 40 years.
Yeah. He's doing okay.
He's doing okay. So my point is like, I want to do that. That's always
okay.
Because I'm not properly trained in singing. I've taken a few lessons, but I mean, I'm like you, man. I just
kind of sent it, or
I'm just kind of like, I did it out of necessity. And it
was just a matter of like protecting, what I had, or I was just like, the last thing I need to do is fuck up my voice, especially even like halfway through recording the album.
And you're always going to get people that fucking hate your voice. Just letting you know that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I
had my share. I can tell you that much. But
that's
it's all
shame,
good,
man. Because like, honestly, your vocals were something that set you guys apart. Like, especially with the Essence of Time. Like when I heard that, like your vocal, I was like, dude, like I love the way he sings.
Thank
you. Sounds killer. Thank you. It works really well with the band. I mean, they don't sound like every other fucking band. Not like it would have if you had a more traditional vocal style, because the music's killer too. But like the vocals just like really like set you guys apart, in my opinion.
I appreciate the kind words, man.
Sure.
I think you just have to believe in yourself, because that's what I always had. I just always just like, and again, we'll get back to the story, I promise. But in terms of vocals and whatnot, it's just a matter of just not giving a fuck. Just do it.
Yeah. You got to trust yourself. You got to trust yourself.
Even when nobody trusts you. Yeah. Not even when your band trusts you. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's why you tell them. That's why you just tell them to fuck off and do what you do.
Yeah, pretty much. However, there was a couple weak moments, in finding my voice, like with Fallacy, where I was like, luckily it was a shitty backyard show, but I thought I discovered like ultra low death metal vocals, not like Chris Barnes, Cannibal, but like I would even say like Corpse Grinder, like just like powerful lows. I was like in the fucking parking lot of the show we were gonna play at, like an hour before I was set, and I was like, I think I just learned how to do Corpse Grinder lows. I'm gonna do them the entire fucking set. And guess what? We watched the video back,
just like,
and all you heard was, it was so embarrassing. I was like, shit.
At least it was during the first show, not the 500th show. You learned early on, right?
It wasn't that early. I mean, it was a shitty show, but it was like probably our 30th show or something. Like I was like, I should have known better, but it was just like,
you're gonna have thousands of more, dude. So it was pretty early on, I would say.
Sure.
So lastly, I want to thank you for coming on and hanging with me for a few hours and doing this with me and helping me promote this great record from the Perilous Mind. Now, where can people find the record and help support the band?
So we're on Instagram, which will be the quickest way to get to all our shit, which is _Perilous_Mind. And on there we have a link tree with, we are on Spotify, Apple Music. I think we're on like Google Play. We're on iTunes for sure. We're on YouTube. I have a couple different YouTube links. I actually uploaded the album on my personal YouTube channel, just in its entirety. One, just like with the timestamps,
like a full stream and stuff. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty DIY. And then I have a playlist of cause I use DistroKid. So I have a playlist of each individual song on YouTube as it was released from DistroKid.
And I'm assuming Bandcamp.
Yeah. We got CDs, t-shirts, for now. Probably get some patches going soon, but, yeah, and then of course you can listen to it digitally on Bandcamp as well.
I love it, man. Well, Travis, thank you very much again for giving me a few minutes of your time. You're always welcome back on the show, so come back.
Appreciate it.
And we'll talk shop, obviously, because that's what we do here. Just nerd out on fucking music and metal. But
absolutely.
For another episode of Poppitt's Corner, guys, we're out of here. Cheers.